Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Toronto Defiant preview. So, Toronto Defiant. There's a unique thing about Toronto Defiant's season last season, and that is the fact that they actually came joint 17th with the Washington Justice. And I think this is the first time it's happened where actually a team has, in the overall standings, come joint in a place, but they had exactly the same win-loss record, 8 and 20, and the same differential, minus 33. So Toronto, they were given the benefit of the doubt and put above Washington Justice, I believe because of alphabetical order. So Toronto Defiant actually occupied the 17th spot, not the 18th spot, but they were joint 17th with Washington Justice. So it was a pretty disappointing season for the Toronto Defiant. They started off really well. They started off in the Stage 1 playoffs, and looked like a team that could actually pull off some surprises in this season, but then they just fell off and kept falling off until the point where they really fell down the league and ended up below the likes of the Houston Outlaws and Dallas Fuel, which is not a particularly great look, only just surviving above the Washington Justice, Boston Uprising and Florida Mayhem, who were clearly pretty bad last season apart from Washington and Florida picking up towards the end. So Toronto have a lot of work to do in this offseason to try and remedy some of the problems that they've had in the 2019 season, because it's a shame because they started off so well. The remedies they have gone after? Well, rebuilding their squad, because that's generally what an Overwatch League team does when it doesn't do very well. So they have retained Roki, Logix and Mangachu. Logix and Mangachu came in midway through the season, so I'm not surprised they've held on to these two players, although Mangachu has now become two-way with their academy team Montreal Rebellion, as has Roki, the support player. So that's interesting, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But the rest of the players are new, and for these new players, some players have had to go and make space for them. And this means that they have let go of Neko to O2 Blast, Ivy to the Philadelphia Fusion, Yakpung to O2 Blast, I'm37 is no longer assigned. Aid has gone to become assistant coach at the Paris Eternal, Sharik has become unassigned, and Gods has also become unassigned. So a lot of people have gone out. But the question is, who have they replaced them with? Right, so the first signing for the Toronto Defiant is Kariv. Kariv we know from the Los Angeles Valiant. He's been at the Los Angeles Valiant since the very start. He is actually a really good player, and Los Angeles Valiant didn't get the best out of Kariv last year. He's a unique player because he can also play the DPS. He's been known for his Widowmaker and his Soldier 76, as well as being a support on the Ana and Zen. So I think that's a really good flex option for the Toronto Defiant, although I'm not expecting him to play anything other than the support role. He was with the Los Angeles Valiant when they came second in the inaugural season. They were very good in the inaugural season, so I think he has the potential to get back to that. Whether he will with the Toronto Defiant, that's up to the Defiant to get the best out of their players, and I've said this multiple times during these team preview videos. So Kariv is a decent pickup, and honestly one of the best pickups you could get in a replacement of Neko, which is the player whose place he will be taking. Then we have the income of Canadian talent, and this is Agilities. Agilities you'll know from, yes, guess what, the Los Angeles Valiant. It seems as though the Toronto Defiant want to leech LA Valiant of all its quality. He's a really good player, Agilities. He's a bit inconsistent for my liking, but he can be a really good player. He was really good back when he was playing on Immortals, back before the Overwatch League started. Immortals were a really good team back then. And then they became Los Angeles Valiant. Valiant did well in the inaugural season. He's also done well with Team Canada before, although not in the most recent World Cup. We all know how Team Canada did in the most recent World Cup, although I don't think that's really Agility's fault. So Valiant, yeah, he didn't really blow anyone away in 2019. If Toronto Defiant can get the best out of Agilities, then they've got a very good player on their hands. But we haven't seen the best of Agilities in a good year or so, if not more. So I like to see Agilities get a bit more consistent with his play, but otherwise he's a good pickup. Then we have the new tank player for the Toronto Defiant, the main tank, Beast. Beast comes in from the Fusion University. So, Beast was with the Fusion University when the Fusion University were the pinnacle of Tier 2 play in NA and pretty much worldwide, apart from Korea, because Fusion University dominated NA and NA East during 2018 and early 2019. They were pretty much unstoppable, and Beast was their main tank during that period. Then Fusion University they also won the Atlantic Showdown as well in 2019, but then they transferred over to Korea, where they found themselves coming up short to the likes of O2 Blast, Runaway, Gen G, and Element Mystic. So, yeah, I think he will be a decent main tank for the Toronto Defiant. I really do. I think he's better than some of the other options that were on the market. Do I think he's top of the... Well, not top of the league. That's a bit stretching it. But is he playoff, level? I don't know. I really don't know. He is really good in terms of his varied hero pool, though. He can play all the main tanks, which I really like to see in a main tank player. Because there's one thing that people like to keep consistent in their teams. It's the main tank. Because very often they're the anchor of the team. And if that changes a lot, it can mess a whole team up. We've seen it with Fisher before. When Fisher comes in, he's that anchor, he's really good. But when Fisher goes off the rails, the whole team tends to suffer. So it can be like that. But Beast, I think, is a really good pickup for the Toronto Defiant. And then we have probably the most marquee signing for the Toronto Defiant this year. And it's another Canadian talent. It's a Canadian talent, you'll all know. It's Shaw 4. Shaw 4 coming in from the Los Angeles Gladiators. Poor LA. Toronto really are just taking all the talent from LA, aren't they? Shaw 4 will, well, I would have thought, be the best DPS player on this roster. Simply because Shaw 4 is so flexible. He's so good, Shaw 4. And he's got a really good brain on him as well. He's been really good for Los Angeles Gladiators. Again, Los Angeles Gladiators have been a really consistent team in the Overwatch League in both the inaugural season and this season. And he's also been really good for the Canadian World Cup squad. So Shaw 4, I think, will be a really good signing, and I'd like to see Shaw 4 take on a more leadership role at the Toronto Defiant because I think he's very much capable of it. Shaw 4 is a really good player and he's got a really good brain on him, and I think he will be crucial to this Toronto Defiant squad's success if they want to be successful during this 2020 season. So then we have Kellex. Kellex is a Danish support player from the Boston Uprising. Kellex was I think the last remaining original Boston Uprising player. Now they don't have any original players, so yeah. But Kellex, really good player. He was really good for Boston Uprising during the inaugural season. Boston Uprising were good during the inaugural season. But he really wasn't able to shine at the Boston Uprising last year. No one was able to shine at the Boston Uprising last year. Let's not beat around the bush here. He's always been good for Team Denmark, although Team Denmark have never got far until this year in the World Cup, or last year I should say now. They did very well, Team Denmark, last year, and I think Kellex will be a really good figure in this Toronto Defiant squad and will be a really good anchor to that back line alongside Kareev, who I would imagine will be his partner in crime in the support line for Toronto Defiant. I think this is a really good pickup there. And then we have the off-tank Nevix. Now, we weren't talking about the San Francisco Shock all that long ago. Nevix comes in from the Shock. Nevix is, man, he has been at so many teams. He dates back to 2015. Nevix is such a storied off-tank player in esports for Overwatch. He's really, really good. Obviously, coming from Sweden, he's really, really good. Nevix played a lot for the San Francisco Shock during the inaugural season. San Francisco Shock's inaugural season wasn't brilliant. And then he's found himself benched at the Shock in 2019 because of Choi Hyobin. And to be quite honest, I don't think there's a player in the world that can knock Choi Hyobin off the off-tank role at the San Francisco Shock right now. Not even the likes of Fury. So it's no shame to losing out to Choi Hyobin. I hope that Nevix can regain some real good form at the Toronto Defiant, because I think he still has the potential to be a really good player. And alongside Beast, I think he could possibly realise this. Again, it will come down to the coaches at the Toronto Defiant to get the best out of their squad though. Talking of coaches, let's talk about the coaches then. So they've lost their assistant coach, Moby Dick, to the Philadelphia Fusion. We mentioned that in a couple of videos ago. And they've also let go of Optidox, their other assistant coach, as well. Also, Bishop, the head coach, also left the Toronto Defiant in August. That was a little while ago, though. So, what does this mean? Well, this means that they've brought in a new team manager assistant coach, Bless, the French. It's a very French coaching lineup for the Toronto Defiant, by the way. They then have the strategic coach, Lilbo, and the head coach, Feifei, or Feifei. So, that's very interesting. They've gone with pretty much an all-French coaching lineup. It's rather unique. I don't think I've ever seen an all-French coaching lineup. I don't think there was one at the Paris Eternal last season, which is where Feifei comes from, the Paris Eternal. We mentioned that a couple of videos ago. Lilbo comes in from Team Giganti. I'm really pleased to see that because Team Giganti, it's a tragic story to see that Team Giganti won't be around for 2020, but I hope a lot of their talent does make its way into the Overwatch League, and appears that Lilbo is transferring as a coach instead of a player, which he was for Team Gigante a couple of months ago. And then Allbless comes in from the Paris Eternal as well, but he will take on a slightly unique role, as he will not only be team manager and assistant coach of the Toronto Defiant, but it'll also be intertwining that with being the same role for Montreal Rebellion, which is the academy team of the Toronto Defiant. I think actually this is a pretty darn good move. And the reason for that is because he will know every single bit of talent they have got in their academy roster. And so if there's any real good talent in that roster, he can just say to the Toronto Defiant, look, let's promote this guy, let's promote this person. And that could be a really good way to spot new talent coming up from Contenders NA. But that is it for the Toronto Defiant, I believe. I don't think there's anything else to go through on the roster. Let's take a look at who they'll be taking on then. So, in week 1, they will be at the New York homestand, where they will take on the Paris Eternal. Actually, that's quite an interesting game, because a lot of the coaches from Toronto Defiant have been at the Paris Eternal, so that'll be quite interesting. See if there's a bit of revenge for the Toronto Defiant coaches there. But I think this could be actually a pretty even match. Paris Eternal won't have their new Element Mystique players yet, so it'll be interesting. I think Paris might have the edge. I don't know about this Toronto Defiant squad, honestly. It's very difficult to call. I think their DPS line could be pretty strong, but it might have to carry other parts of the team, and so I don't know where this Toronto Defiant might fall. Or if it's got the capability, it could be a bit like Boston Uprising in the inaugural season. It could surprise us. It's certainly got the quality to. Don't know whether it will though. And then in week 3, they will go on and play the Philadelphia Fusion. Philadelphia Fusion, much improved. It's going to be a struggle for Toronto Defiant for that one, but again, it could be an even game. Then in week 4, they have to take on the Atlanta Reign. Atlanta Reign, I'd still say, are pretty strong going on their 2019 season performance, and then looking at their roster now, I think the Atlanta Reign are going to be one of the stronger teams in the league this year. So I think that'll be a tough one for Toronto. And then the Houston Outlaws. Houston Outlaws, difficult to predict right now with their new roster. And then in week 5, Florida Mayhem, another one difficult to predict as well with that new roster. Florida Mayhem, honestly, could be a big sleeper team this season. And then in week 6, Washington Justice. If Toronto want to be up there, they're going to have to get wins against the likes of Washington, Florida, and Houston. It's kind of a given. Same with Paris. It's kind of the teams you want to beat if you want to be up there in those playoffs. It'll be a big teller at the start of the season, but it's certainly a good start to the season for the Toronto Defiant, because they haven't got massively difficult games. They haven't got to come across the likes of San Francisco Shock or Vancouver or New York Excel. So they've kind of dodged a bullet there, and hopefully they can grow into the season, because I think that's perhaps what this squad might need to do. They might get better as the season goes on. But that'll be it for Toronto Defiant, but that is not it for Canada, because next up we will be looking at the Vancouver Titans. And there is one very big issue to talk about with the Vancouver Titans coming into 2020. And I'm sure you'll know what it is. But we will look at that in the next video. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.